Hello, everyone. Good morning. This is You'll Never Talk Alone. I say good morning because hopefully you're listening to this episode on the morning of Tuesday, September 18th, before Liverpool and Paris Saint-Germain tee off against each other. Can you say that in a sport where there's no tea involved?
You can now.
Okay. There's all kinds of tea in the game now.
T. Martin might be watching.
Wow, that is a name I did not care to remember anytime soon. I'm Joseph Craven. That's Alex Level. We're here once again by ourselves. Everyone else on the podcast abandoned us for this little episode, but we wanted to get a quick episode in where we preview the Champions League matchup coming up on Tuesday. So hopefully you're listening before that. If not, then you can listen to the part of the episode where we talk about Tottenham, and then you can cut it off because you don't have to listen to anything after that. I think that's only fair.
It makes sense.
It makes sense. But we are here to discuss another Liverpool victory. Oh, it feels so good. It just feels so good. That doesn't sound like a happy noise. I don't want that noise to ever be on this podcast again. So if you can make sure that happens, that'd be wonderful.
I'll try.
Thank you. 5 matches in, 5 Liverpool victories. It's crazy at this point that we are, that we're doing what we're doing. It's so much fun. But let's not necessarily read too deep into it. Of course, there's a long season still ahead, but we got to celebrate what we've been doing well so far. So, Alex, first things first, this match, not the prettiest by far. And let's look at the teams as a whole before we jump into individual performances. But as a whole, the team was able to gut out a victory in something that was not necessarily the prettiest match. What was the key here? What did Liverpool do to get a 2-0 lead that then, of course, had that one stoppage time goal to finish 2-1? But what was Liverpool's key here as far as the team goes?
Yeah, I think it was a combination of us putting them under a lot of pressure, and both teams did it. There wasn't really any midfield in this match. There was enough to where our midfielders were winning the ball and playing it quickly up to the wingers. So we just were able to take advantage of the spaces that were left behind when they stepped forward or when they made a sloppy pass, because that was more often than us winning it back, was them just giving it to us and leaving spaces in behind. So we took advantage of our opportunities to attack them. We didn't necessarily take advantage of our opportunities to score, seeing as this match should have been probably 13-1, depending on how you view the last sub. But we weren't sharp in front of goal, but we were sharp in between the two boxes, I would say. We countered well, we countered intelligently, and every time we went forward, we looked like scoring.
It's very true. It's hard to call. I want to call it an opportunistic match in a lot of ways, which it's hard to say considering what you just said. We should have had more goals, and we didn't take advantage of that. But the build-up play is really what stood out to me as being an opportunistic type of game plan, a game plan where we were trying to jump on mistakes a lot more. We were trying to jump on the absences of key Tottenham players. We're trying to jump on those sort of things and play opportunistically because we're coming out of the first international break, and it can be hard to keep your motivation. It can be hard to keep your form coming out of an international break, especially the first one of the season. So it was probably never going to be an attractive game,
Right.
And so they had to come out with that sort of mentality. And I think it was a pretty gutty performance all in all. It can't really continue to play the way that we've played and hope to hold on to things. But it was do you feel good about this victory, or is this a victory where you're like, okay, I'm really glad we won, but man, that's showing me a few things?
Yes and no. I feel good in the sense that we did win and we created a butt ton of chances
Mm-hmm.
and we should have had more goals, and that makes me feel good. What doesn't make me feel good is that we didn't score more goals and that this did end up being a 1-goal game. And there will come a time where our profligacy in front of goal will come back to bite us unless we start finding our shooting boots, which I mean, I understand we haven't had them beginning of the season, people coming back, like you said. It's a lot to balance, and we did well to create all those chances. But it's something that will get better, obviously, with the calibers of players we have up top, even minus Bobby potentially for this game against PSG, which we'll get to. And I feel good about our defending too, because there were probably only 6 minutes or so where we didn't defend well, and one of those minutes was that little play where Joe Gomez overcommitted against Lucas Moura, and then didn't recover correctly, and Moura hit the post, which we then went and scored down at the other end not too long thereafter.
Yeah.
And like I tweeted out from our Twitter handle at YNTA Podcast, we looked terrible yet again when we brought on a third center back to close out the game.
Yep.
For the love of God, do not do that anymore. If someone could pull the stats, I'm sure someone has, but I'm pretty sure every time we do that, we concede a goal at the minimum, and if not, we concede 3 or 4 big chances. We just lose our minds completely. And we've talked about it before, and it keeps happening. So the person at the club that listens to this, stop doing that. It doesn't work. Had you just done what you had been doing, we would have been fine, because what we had been doing was great. They barely challenged the entire match. In the first half, their only chance was the free kick. In the second half, their only real chance was the post hit and the goal that came after the substitution. So stop doing that.
I mean, we've gotten so much better at winning in matchups where the other team sits back, parks the bus. We're obviously so good in matchups where the other team tries to play us, man to man. We've gotten so good in counterattacking. The one thing we are still terrible at is sitting back. So, don't keep playing that way, maybe. I mean, if you're just bad at something, maybe don't incorporate it into the game plan. I don't know. It seems like a revolutionary idea to me, but if you don't... Yeah, it's stunning. You're absolutely right. Let's look at some of the hard statistics and then switch gears into individual performances. And actually, I want to talk about one individual performance before we get into it, and that is of Tottenham backup goalkeeper, Michel Vorm, who we joked before the match itself happened. We joked about, we're like, oh, Lloris is out. And I said, okay, so is Vorm there? Because I'm more terrified of Vorm against us than I am Lloris. Because for whatever reason, when we go up against Wayne Hennessy and when we go up against Vorm, those two have the performance of a lifetime against us. And it just about happened again. I mean, you look at the statistics, and we had 10 shots on goal. 10 shots on goal out of 17 shots. That's like the most accurate that we've been all year. And we're only able to get 2 goals out of it. So anyway, all that to say, Liverpool in this matchup, 17 shots, 10 on goal versus Tottenham's 11 and 3 on goal. Tottenham winning the possession battle 60-40. Not a massive possession lead, of course. And a lot of that being at the end of the match when we were goofing off. I mean, when we're being morons, So for the most part, pretty much even in just about every statistical category. Fouls, 1 foul difference between the two teams, 1 offsides call difference between the two teams, 1 corner kick difference between the two teams. The major difference is that Vorm had 8 saves and, we had 2. Of course, the 1 goal that went in was just an impossible angle. Not really anything that anyone can do to stop the shot once it's released. Should have been stopped sooner, probably. But
absolutely.
So statistically speaking, very even match, aside from the fact that Liverpool was very accurate in shooting but could not get goals.
Yeah.
Incredible stuff. The most important goal of the match had to have been the impossible goal. No, not the stoppage time Tottenham impossible angle goal. No, Georgino Wijnaldum actually getting an away league goal. Unbelievable. His first away goal in the Premier League. And put on top of a pretty solid performance out of him in general in a season in which he's been putting together some pretty strong performances. Would he qualify as your man of the match, or if not, who do you think deserves that?
He would definitely be up there. It's probably him, Milner, and Van Dijk and Gomez. Those would be my men of the match because they were solid. Gomez had the one hiccup on the Mora chance, like we mentioned earlier, but the rest were incredibly solid. Gomez and Van Dijk just ate up everything that Spurs threw at them, which was really just one thing. It was a 50-yard diagonal ball over the top that was never going to get over them because it was speculative at best. And Milner and Wijnaldum put that myth to bed that you can't win the ball off of Dembele, because they both took turns throwing Dembele off the ball. And it was just spectacular to see. They were springing attacks. They were bursting forward. Gini almost had one right after he scored, too, on a counterattack. They were everywhere in a good way, and they were not just doing what Spurs were doing and lofting it. They were actually directing the passes into the spaces left behind. So they were both immense. And like we talked about last week, it's strange to have the midfield be the part that we're praising week in, week out. Yep. When last year we were like, what are we going to do about this midfield?
The biggest question mark became the one thing that we're pretty much feeling the most confident in, you know?
Right.
Really is incredible to see that. Yet can't argue with you about the guys that you mentioned. And I feel like it's worth giving more praise. We've praised these guys a lot on the podcast, but you can't praise them enough for how well so far James Milner has been playing. He has been our best midfielder. At what is he now? 48 years old? Is that right?
92.
Right. 92. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, how good Joe Gomez has been as a youngster, early 20s, in his first run of actual first team, play. And he's been killing it. And he looks like the most comfortable pairing with Virgil van Dijk. And you got to wonder if Dejan Lovren, if he still fits in with the way that we want to play moving forward. But love those guys. They're just killing it in the performances. Unexpected heroes, really, of the team so far. What's your take on the horrifically injured Bobby Firmino? Of course, the second goal scorer. What do you think of him and also of the forwards, their performance in this particular match? Because that's the position group that, if there was a disappointment, it seems like they were the ones that were the disappointment in this match.
Right. First of all, that was a really unfortunate and disgusting injury that sucks. Bobby suffered. I'd like to think Vertonghen didn't mean it. I think he was trying to fend Bobby off. And if he did mean it, that's a really weird thing to do. If you're weird, Jan, seek help if that's your idea of a good time. Right. That's just messed up. I mean, he was in there. Yeah. He was dangle in there.
Yep.
And apart from the injury, that was a really bad decision by Bobby to stick his eye there. But I mean, our
just bad form on Bobby's eye.
What was he thinking? The forwards were great, except for the one thing that they're really paid to do, and that's finish. Because, I mean, Vorm did have 8 saves, but we didn't really put it either side of him. We put it side enough, sort of. Had it been a little bit harder or something, it would have gone in, but it wasn't enough to go past him, obviously. It wasn't enough to really make him work. And we also had a few times where, had we just laid it off really simply, we could have had a tap in. Yes. I know there were a few where Naby Keita was kind of wide open at the back post.
Yeah, I
and all it
yelled
needed
that a
was a
few
simple
times
layoff.
while watching the game. I yelled a few times, "Oh my gosh, pass the ball!" They just
Yeah,
wouldn't do it. Like
yeah. It was just
if it were a FIFA run, if I were playing FIFA and that was my team run, I would have passed that thing 30 times back and forth between two guys, just getting down the field. But anyway,
and they had enough time to do that. Had we could have done that. We could have played 1 through 8, like 1, 2, 3, 4, just back and forth, and then scored. But we waited that split second too long, or we were too hungry. And I love the fact that our forwards are hungry for goals.
yeah.
But let's get really hungry for goals like that when we're 3-0 up, 4-0
Yeah.
up, after we've been a little selfless.
Yeah, maybe we could be smart and hungry. Like, can we combine those two things? That'd be nice.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it will click. I think that will come. It was just this match. It was very frustrating, and thankfully it didn't bite us in the butt. But we need to see some improvement in the box there, and to stop making these average keepers look stellar.
Yep, absolutely. I was very upset about that goal because I was the only one. If you go back to our website, ynta.podbean.com, if you go back to the website, I was the only one of the group that actually predicted us to keep a clean sheet, and we were this close.
They keep ruining my prediction that we weren't going to concede again. Dicks.
Yeah, exactly. We haven't conceded much this season, of course. Only 2 goals allowed through the first 5 weeks of the season. Compared to the amount of goals scored, it's pretty good. But you look at the Liverpool high-scoring attack that we had last season. The incredible individual performances of Mohamed Salah. You go back season before where we had to score 6 goals just to win anything. Is that sort of type of game. But and then you look at the way that we've started this season off, and other than a 4-0 beating of West Ham, who if Andrew Ainsworth were here, he would interject with, "They are garbage. They are terrible."
And that's why they beat Everton.
And that's why
Everton
they beat
are also terrible.
But outside of that, it's 2-0 over Palace, 1-0 over Brighton, 2-1 against Leicester, 2-1 against Tottenham. The offense just not quite there in early season. You mentioned it as kind of to be expected at the beginning of the year. That's something that you kind of have to get back into coming out of the offseason. But if we're looking ahead, we've got a terrible part of the schedule coming up. The end of September into October is just rough. Obviously, you've got the PSG match. Then you've got our farm team, Southampton. But you've got Chelsea. You got Chelsea twice if you count the Carabao Cup. You've got, Napoli. You've got City. I mean, it's just a whole lot. We eventually have Red Star Belgrade, which is a terrifying.
The Marco Grujic derby.
The Marco Grujic, I love it. So it's nasty, and it's a nasty part of the schedule, and we haven't necessarily looked like a dominant team. Yes, we've been winning, and yes, our defense has a lot of times looked dominant, but the question right here is, in your opinion, I'm going to combine 2 questions that we kind of had written down here in our outline. How good or bad were we actually in this game, realistically speaking? And what do you think that this current run of form means moving into this difficult schedule here?
We were good. We were good except for in those 18 yards between the top of their box and their goal line. So all that needs is a little more practice, a little more fine-tuning. I'm sure the day of rest or the light session that they had today will help for that. So I think we're in good shape. You can look at a lot of the teams that finished strongly, especially going to this Champions League match day. I was trying to pick my fantasy team, and I kept looking at all these teams that are in the Champions League. It's like, wow, so many of these teams have started really, really badly. And we haven't looked anything like we did last year, but we've won 5 and 5. So we're doing a lot better than a lot of these teams in the Champions League. So I don't think we have too much to worry about. And I think we have a lot to look forward to. I'm sure we might have to change things up, and you fully expect rotation when you have 6 matches in 21 days. I think that's the stats going forward. And especially with all these tough fixtures, some of them being Champions League, some of them being cup matches. So this is where we'll really test the depth of our squad. This is where we'll test our medical team to make sure people don't pull up injured, because when the fixtures pile up, that's when the injuries pile up. And if we can keep those to a minimum, I think we'll be in really good shape.
Absolutely. You got to have a little bit of luck in these situations.
Right.
You know? And so far we've gotten the luck of not really having any major injuries. We've got the things like, Bobby missing out most likely. Adam Lallana, of course, had a little bit of time off, that sort of thing. But, we've gotten a little bit lucky, and you got to hope that you can get lucky as things continue in this rough stretch. It'll be very interesting to see. So let's go ahead and look ahead at this PSG matchup. Let's jump into the champions. I always think about singing it. And I decided today I'd actually go for it. The Champions League, we got one heck of a draw as far as the group goes. My goodness.
Yeah, not a big fan of our group. I mean, I'm not scared like I would have been in the past. It's just I really liked our group last year, and it's a little sad that we don't have that.
Yeah, is our friends from summer camp last year, right?
Yeah,
we
right.
Missed those guys. PSG right now. I mean, you know them. They are the team out of France. They're the big money squad. They're spending, more to bring in one player than a lot of countries have, and like their own, GDPs and all. It just it's crazy. They're a big name. But tell us a little bit, Alex, as the guy that we trust to be the scout in these things, meaning that you sum up you sum up the sport well because you played it. The rest of us are just like, they look pretty good. I guess that was nice. So what do we expect out of PSG? What type of team are they right now?
They're adjusting to their new manager's tactics. So they brought in Thomas Tuchel, the guy that perennially follows Jurgen Klopp pretty much wherever he goes. So let's just expect him to be our manager after Klopp leaves.
Klopp ain't leaving. Don't even talk like that.
No, I meant in like 10 years, 15 years.
Right. Sorry. Yeah. When he just decides to retire from coaching.
Right.
Of course.
I mean, his ideas aren't fully in, and he plays a pretty technical, pretty complicated game. And it's kind of like our new signings. It takes a little while to adjust tactically to everything that he wants his team to do. So they're not at their best yet. That being said, I mean, they're walking their league, and that really doesn't take that much for them. There's only a few teams that can really challenge them. And even if they do drop points against those teams, they'll just walk the other matches. And they have world-class talent in pretty much every position. They'll want to control the ball, but they'll also probably try to invite us on a little bit. I haven't seen too much of them this season, but they're starting to click. I mean, they're scoring multiple goals in every match, and some of them have been very well constructed. And just even with all that, they still have Neymar, they still have Mbappe, they still have Cavani, they still have Rabiot, they still have Draxler, and luckily they won't have Verratti. So we're going to have to mind the fact that this will be one of the games, probably the first game of the season, where the other team will be able to score without us giving it to them. I mean, we have been defending well, but they have the quality, and they're starting to have the mindset to play kind of like we saw Dortmund play. I mean, the similar ideals to how we saw Dortmund play when we played them in the Europa League. So that's something we have to watch out for.
I mean, you mentioned Well, what you're saying is basically that this is the toughest opponent we've seen so far.
Absolutely.
And I guess the question is this if this is the toughest opponent we've seen, it's safe to to assume that this is the toughest opponent in our Champions League group. And so, I mean, do you think that the group is us and PSG and then the other teams in the group? I mean, is that kind of the breakdown here? And I guess if that's the case, I mean, if we're able to just pull out a draw against PSG, is that enough of a victory, for us to be able to advance from this group at the end of things?
It's definitely us two competing for top spot, barring a collapse in the Champions League. That we're definitely the strongest two teams in this group. I mean, Napoli is good, but they're also going through a transition period of their own, and our squads are better overall than their squad. And a draw would be okay. I mean, we're at home. We can beat anybody. I want to win. The team wants to win. Everyone wants to win. A draw would be good, but disappointing, I would say.
Okay.
I think we have every reason to believe we can win this match. They're good. We're good. We are better, I think. They have star quality all around, but they have had cohesion issues. And if there's one thing that describes this team that we have right now, it is cohesive. They are together. They are united. Everyone is focused on the goals that they set out at the beginning of the season. And I think that will help us. And I think they have struggled in the past, especially in the knockout stages, where they get complacent. They're not pushed every week. And I know it's early, but there could be a little bit of that going on already. They're not used to being tested. They're not used to being matched punch for punch. And I think that could work to our advantage.
Let's go ahead and ask the most important question when it comes to dealing with Paris Saint-Germain. Let's give them a crest exam. We've talked about the club itself. We've talked about how we shape up in the group. Let's go ahead and look at the crest and decide what it is that we think. Whether, of course, this is something we haven't really, I don't even know if we've done one this whole season, actually.
No, because we've played all these teams before.
Yeah, we've played all the teams before, so we haven't really been dealing with it. But we have to look at the crest and rate it in terms of what is it? Best crest, meh crest, or crap crest. And this, I feel like the PSG crest is something that a lot of people could probably recognize. I mean, it's got the blue and the red. It kind of is matching a lot of the French flag as far as a color scheme goes. It's got the Eiffel Tower on it. It's got huge words that say Paris on them. That was part of a redesign in 2013 that majorly rearranged things on the logo to, I believe the quote was from the shareholder, Oryx Qatar Sports Investments, QSI, wanted to take full advantage of the city's global appeal. So really pulling on the name of the city itself. But what do you think when you look at the crest of PSG?
I think it's a best crest, and it's hard to get classier than having the Eiffel Tower in your crest.
Right. Yeah,
I like the color scheme, red, white, and blue. Go America! So, they say it's for the French flag. It's really for the American flag. Let's be honest.
We all know it.
So much so that they even put the Air Jordan logo in their crest to announce their new Air Jordan kits, which we will see tomorrow on display.
Wow.
So, and it's a great crest. The rebrand, obviously, for marketing purposes, kind of like you've seen with Juventus and a lot of and even us, we had a much more ornate crest until we kind of went back to just the liverbird. So,
yeah,
we are crest buddies, I guess you could say, in that regard. But good for them, best crest.
Yeah, it's not a massive change. The 2013 redo is basically essentially the same as the one that they had up until that from about 2002 to 2013. It's circular shape, mostly blue, red tower. The changes were that in the other one, it said Paris Saint-Germain across the top, the whole thing. It said 1970 underneath it. And then it had underneath the Eiffel Tower a fleur-de-lis and apparently the cradle of Louis the 16th. Is that right? Just had it in front of me, and then I accidentally moved away from it.
I feel like they took some detail out of the Eiffel Tower itself, too. I feel like it used to be more defined.
Yeah, Louis the 14th. There we go. Louis the 14th. Yeah, they did. It was, well, they stylized it a bit more, trying to do that whole kind of modern art look for the logo. I am a huge fan of, and it's been essentially the same. I mean, 1972 is when they first introduced the red Eiffel Tower in a blue circle with the fleur-de-lis and the cradle in it. I'm a big fan of the one that they had from 96 to 2002, which is almost entirely the same, but the border, the inner circle is blue with the red Eiffel Tower, and then it has a white outer circle.
Ooh.
And it says Paris Saint-Germain 1970 in it. Big fan of that one. Their original crest was a light blue soccer ball shape with some sort of design in the middle that looks like a boat. Yep, it's a boat.
Well, that's very different.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see. The Paris FC logo was used from 1970 until 73. It featured a ball and a vessel, two powerful symbols of Paris, as well as the club. I don't know how that's a symbol of Paris, but all right. As well as the club's name, Paris Saint-Germain Football Club, or its initials, PSGFC. So there you go. In 72, PSG split from Paris FC, and then they changed the crest after that. But this is one of the classiest crests in all of football. You recognize it worldwide, and there's a reason behind that. And part of it's because it's well done. It's simplistic. It's not over the top, what you were just saying about it. And it's infinitely better than the worst crest I've ever seen, which was 92 to 96 for PSG, which is literally huge letters, PSG. It looks like the logo of what you'd expect, like a cheesy TV station in the 90s to have. It's really bad. Just Google it. If you're listening to this, Google the 92 to 96 PSG logo. You won't be disappointed. It's pretty freaking bad. But
oh yeah, that's really bad.
It's very 90s and it's very local access TV style.
It's like a souvenir shirt that you buy at like a random shop in Paris.
It is.
Or at the airport.
It absolutely is. So best crest for sure. Love it. This is a big time club. This is a big time matchup. What do you think we're going to see, or what's going to be our key to success? And let's go ahead and maybe get a scoreline prediction. Ooh.
I think our key to success is how we adjust without Bobby Firmino. I'm operating on the assumption that he will not start, at least after that eye injury, and we haven't seen much of what we can do when we rotate yet. I mean, Jordan Henderson coming in versus Leicester was not that big of a change, I would say. I mean, obviously not a similar player to Naby Keita at all, but for the scenario we were playing in, it didn't affect our game plan too much. But this is a whole different ballgame. Bobby is a huge part of our defensive work, starting from the front line, and a huge part of our attacking work, creating space for the players around him. So I'm kind of expecting to see Mo shift centrally and play as kind of our striker. And I'm thinking we see Shaqiri come in for his first start for us.
Nice.
Because I would like to see Daniel Sturridge play, but unfortunately, Daniel Sturridge looked really slow in his cameo against Spurs. And that really stood out to me, even though he wasn't on the field for a very long time. He just looked he didn't have any pace. He couldn't keep up with the speed of that game. And I feel like this match will be played at a similar pace, and we need someone who can keep up and who can challenge, and will put the work rate in up and down the field. And I'm not saying Daniel Sturridge is lazy by any means, but we'll need that speed to cover. And I'm also
he hasn't played in a while, so he's lacking in form. He's lacking in match fitness right now.
And those injuries have just taken their toll on his explosiveness. So it's really unfortunate. And I think he'd be a great option off the bench for sure. But I don't know if he gets to start in this match. And we could also see some shifts in the midfield. I mean, they have been playing exceptionally well, but we do need to give them a little break. All of them but Milner played on the international break. And so they didn't really get much rest over those 2 weeks. So I think Milner keeps his spot, but I definitely think we could see Gini and Naby shift out. Maybe we could see Fabinho start. Fabinho's played PSG numerous times. Mm-hmm. Fabinho looked good over international break. He should be getting close enough to at least play.
You'd think so, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't expect any rotation from our back line, except maybe we might see Klein. I could see that just because give Trent a rest. We saw how much we rotated Trent last year. He's definitely bulked out and matured a lot, but it would be nice to give him a rest. But so the only real place I'm expecting choice rotation by choice is in the midfield. And score prediction, I'm thinking 3-2 our way. I think it's going to be a barn burner. And then I think we don't let Rabiot leave. Those links earlier in the season are to be believed.
Yeah, you were running through some of their key players earlier. Like, they've still got this guy. They still got Rabiot. And I was almost like, I mean, they might not for long. I mean, I like it. Yeah, I expect some rotation, or at least the new signings to see a lot more playing time, exactly what you were just saying. And this is too good of an opportunity to prove a point to treat it, as anything other than that. If it was a different point in the season, if we were starting off against a different opponent, a different opponent in our group, maybe we would do a lot of, rotation to give the starters some rest and all. This is too big of a matchup and too big an opportunity to say, hey, we're coming for that time. We haven't forgotten the way the Champions League ended last season. We're coming for that cup. So I'm thinking this one ends up being a barn burner as well, but I'm thinking it's a 2-2 draw. I think these are two high-powered teams that are going to really just try to beat the crap out of each other. And at the end of the day, I think more than anything else, this is going to be an incredibly entertaining match of football for sure. So what do you think, listener? I want you to, if you're up on our website, it's ynta.podbean.com. Leave a comment on the post. Tweet at us, YNTA Podcast. I don't know. Friend us individually on Facebook and talk to us. I don't really know.
Add us on LinkedIn.
Check out our Zanga page. We want to hear from you. What do you think is going to happen in this matchup? Do you think Liverpool is going to be able to pull off the victory? Do you think that this is going to be the first taste of defeat on this season? Obviously not Premier League defeat, because we're still untouchable in the Premier League. What? So let us know what you think about this matchup, unless it's already happened, and then let us know what you thought about that matchup.
Also, one final point, I guess. This might be the best sartorial matchup we've seen all season. So let us know whose kits you think are better. We've got our classy reds. I really like their blue and red that they've done this year. It's more, the lines are more blurred, and I think it looks really cool. And then, of course, their Air Jordan kits. I mean, they're white kits. Yeah. They're just white T-shirts, basically, because that's what Nike does now. But the other two kits are pretty cool looking. So do you think they're better than the Purple People Eaters or our weird third kits? They still haven't grown on me yet. I don't know what it is. I think it's just the fake patterning. It just doesn't do it for me.
I get it. I'm not a huge fan of. I like the weird third one with the fake patterning a little more than the purple personally, but I know I'm in the minority on this podcast when it comes to that. So, oh well. We want to hear all your comments, listeners. Let us know. And best listener comments get shouted out in the next episode.
They get the gold star.
You get the gold star if you comment and tweet at us, all that good stuff. Hey, we're going to be putting out more stuff when it comes closer to our upcoming matchup against Southampton. But until then, go Reds, and we will talk to all of you after we hopefully defeat Paris Saint-Germain. That's Alex Level for Zach, Andrew, and Will out at home, probably just being lazy. I'm Joseph Craven. This has been You'll Never Talk Alone. Thank you for listening.